RustyStarlands. Book 1. The Tree and the Kindling. Prologue. Under the Canopy. Section 1. The Roots of Silverus. The lights of the dome city shattered in Tain Karen's eyes, breaking into thousands of blurred reflections, like crushed gemstones scattered across a glass chessboard, known to most people simply as Tau. He watched the city in silence. In the distance, 7 newly added shapes lay curled outside the Sector 3 transit lock. Thermal blankets wrapped them into indistinct human forms. Blood seeped through the seams and froze into fine, dark red crystals in the -99 air. By the time dawn filtered through the thin mist, those crystals would be swept away, along with last night's accumulated nuclear waste, cleared by scavenger arms and dumped into the ravines of Arsiamans. Return to dust. Return to forgetting. They had smuggled themselves here with hope in their pockets, believing Mars to be a new world where liquid gold flowed freely. They never knew that oxygen here was thinner than hope in the diamond mines of old Earth. Tragedies like this had long become routine beneath the dome, silently etched into the history of Martian colonization. In the great tide of the Mars environmental transformation met, sacrifice was treated as inevitable. At least, that was what Tau told himself, to keep the delicate balance within his mind from tipping.
Chief Engineer,
a voice said.
The crow from Earth has arrived.
Lynn Therian's voice was, as always, clean and efficient, as if filtered through an air purification system. She stood within the projection glow near the ventilation shaft, pasture straight, like a slab of cut stone never abandoned by time. Her features were sharp and weathered. Under the cold blue light of the work lamps, her cheekbones cast long, narrow shadows. Beneath the solar lamps, her rust-colored skin looked dry and cracked, gaunt, stubborn. Her mechanical right arm twitched once. An old injury from a serious accident. On Mars, prosthetics like hers were commonplace. When Tau rose from his seat, he did not answer right away. His fingertips still rested on the heat dissipation module of the malfunctioning calibrator on the desk. His gaze drifted from the report and settled on Lynn instead. When she used the word crow, that familiar sourness rose in his stomach again. Lynn liked giving people animal nicknames. Different animals, different temperaments. Crow was less mockery than instinctive defense, a name shaped by experience. Inspectors from Earth always arrived with obscure motives and ill omens, and every visit left Tayan exhausted before it even began. If I had a nickname, he thought quietly, it would probably be the Horned Turtle. He had no intention of saying it aloud. There was no need. But the image lingered. The fossil creature Melania, a late reptile with a thick neck, heavy armor plates, and a head too large to withdraw into its shell. Just like him now. On Mars, with no shell yet built, his head exposed to the red wasteland, looking out in quiet vulnerability. The moment Serafini Silverus stepped into the control room, a flock of biomimetic scavenger gulls swept past the dome outside. Their carbon fiber frames cast fractured shadows across the light screen. For an instant, those reflections danced across her tungsten copper mask, forming the illusion of wings in mid-beat, as though half her face were merging with metallic feathers. Serafini wore the ceremonial robes of a Silverus inspector. Interwoven bands of black and silver flowed down from her chest like a star map unfolding. A sword rested at her waist, its cold sheen dormant, almost asleep. The people of House Silverus were known for how they stood always upright. Their tall, slender frames and muted skin tones made them resemble ancient trees, branches tangled, roots buried deep beneath the soil, unmoved by storm or age. Seraphine's movements were composed, shaped by a discipline that felt almost ritualistic. Beneath the mask, half her face was visible, pale as grey jade, Her jawline was sharp, carved rather than grown. When her eyes appeared, they were calm in a way that felt distant, nearly inhuman. Tao caught a faint trace of sandalwood drifting from her, an unfamiliar scent that reminded him of whispered rumors among the upper classes, stories about preservation chambers and prolonged life.
The Council of Elders requires the Sky Crown tree to reach critical growth velocity within 40 Martian days.
As she spoke, her fingers brushed the hilt of her sword. Etched into the scabbard was the family crest she wore with pride, a colossal tree piercing the void, its roots coiled around an open stargate. It was the symbol of House Silverus, an ancient and formidable name, holding an unshakable position among the 11 founding families of the Terran Concord. More importantly, they were controlling the most secret and essential core technologies of the Met. At the heart of it all stood the Sky Crown Tree. In Earth's narrative archives, the Terran Concord was not described as a government in the traditional sense. It was an elite alliance of family enterprises that transcended the idea of nation-states. Its foundations remained on Earth, but its mission had long since turned toward the stars. Faced with an undertaking as vast as extraterrestrial colonization, conventional political systems had proven slow and clumsy. Only families with generations of accumulated capital and execution power could drive humanity forward into the cosmic sea. House Silverus, along with the 10 families who stood beside it, were the architects of that epic endeavor. The council's decision left Tao unsettled. His thumb rubbed absently against the edge of his wristwatch, tracing the cold, slightly coarse metal. The watch had been forged from fragments of fuel rod storage from the first Earth-Moon nuclear station. It carried a history eroded by radiation and mirrored the fate of his family.
The deviation in plutonium decay within Pump Group 3 is increasing,
Tao said. He summoned a holographic display. Pale blue radiation curves unfolded in the air, slithering across Seraphine's mask like a cold glowing serpent coiled in the dark.
If we force a shortened calibration cycle.
Your brother said some things very similar during the Tycho nuclear facility uprising.
Seraphine cut him off. Her voice was perfectly measured, as though every frequency had been calculated in advance, freezing all variables in place. The eye lenses of her mask flared to life. A holographic projection expanded into the air-sealed archival footage from the Caring family records, released at last. Firelight illuminated a young man dismantling an unidentified device. His hands were steady and precise. Every 5 seconds, his eyes flicked to the tungsten cobalt atomic watch on his wrist. Each motion carried a suffocating intensity. His black hair gleamed with a metallic sheen in the shifting flames. His eyes, dark as obsidian, reflected resolve and clarity even in the face of inferno. He stood like a basalt statue, immovable amid a torrent of molten destruction. Behind him, what had once been the thriving lunar spaceport city was now a sea of fire. Flames roared skyward like countless screams of despair, staining the night sky crimson. His name was Lintlash Karen. He was Tao's most revered elder brother, the former pride of House Karen, now its most carefully avoided taboo.
Has anyone ever told you
Seraphine asked lightly.
how much the two of you resemble each other?
It sounded casual, but it was a warning. A house as assertive as Silverus had clearly come prepared this time. Even Karen, itself one of the founding houses of the Terran Concord, could not quite conceal the old wound at its back, still far from healed. Tao's expression tightened. His wrist clenched instinctively, the heavy tungsten cobalt watch pressing against his pulse. This relic of disaster felt like a frozen prison of time, locking ruin and flame beneath his skin. The hands of the watch were forever stopped at that moment. His brother's disappearance, the fall of a city, the shattering of ideals sealed within a dial that no longer moved. leaving only a silent question behind. The control room fell quiet, save for the low murmur of machines. Serafini stood opposite him, the cold glow of her mask reflecting a tremor, so slight it was almost imperceptible.
Lintlash Kareen.
She said softly, almost gently.
A spark from the Tycho uprising, now echoing here.
The people of House Silverus always knew how to remove the single block that mattered most, at precisely the right moment. Tao lowered his gaze, then raised it again. Beneath the clarity in his eyes, grief and fury churned, compressed like fulgurite, glass forged when lightning strikes the desert.
In your calculations,
He asked quietly.
ideals and rebellion, sacrifice and betrayal, are they all just deviations in a data set?
You believe you lost a brother, a beacon, an ideal direction,
Serafini replied.
but in truth, it was no more than a grain of dust drifting with the seasonal winds. The galaxy has its own tides. No one notices where a single ripple goes. We are born to endure the impact of that flood,
She continued.
until our bones shatter and our language withers without ever questioning whether the tide should flow east or west.
She tilted her head slightly. Beneath the tungsten copper mask, her pale lips caught a faint iridescence, like shell nacre refracting light. She always cultivated an inorganic presence, as though she herself were the ancient tree of House Silverus, something older than flesh, longer lived than life, and far more secretive. Rage surged within Tao, but he forced it down. His back remained straight, drawn tight like a bowstring ready to snap, yet silent for now. He knew emotion was the cheapest weakness in this game. House Silverus had never been mere observers. Nominally, the 11 technical noble houses that make up the Terran Concord stand as equals. In practice, however, real power has always depended on the core domains each house monopolizes. In the current moment, the importance of the Sky Crown tree stands above every other system, granting House Silverus a far heavier voice in all matters. By contrast, House Carrion has yet to emerge from the long shadow cast by the Lunar Rebellion years ago. Prolonged political marginalization has left the family weakened as a whole, and it is precisely this rupture in power that has placed Tao in the constrained and vulnerable position he now faces at every turn. Watching Tao hesitate, Serafini seemed to have obtained the answer she wanted. She turned slowly toward the exit.
The suffering of a mortal life
She murmured as she walked away.
is nothing more than the faint echo produced when a breeze passes through leaves.
As Serafini Silvarus's shadow stretched longer and longer, Tao's mind filled with overlapping sounds, his brother's whispers, silica sand rasping against metal, the distant roar of a city burning as the sky tore open. All of it ended the moment the pressure door sealed shut. RustyStarlands, Book 1, The Tree and the Kindling, Prologue Under the Canopy, Section 2, Building an Oasis on the Red Wastes. The control room door slid shut in the wake of Seraphine's departure. A thin line of searing white light stretched across the floor for a brief moment, then faded. Tao stood quietly before the light screen. His fingers still rested on his wristwatch, as if the next movement had yet to be issued. Lin stood a short distance away. She watched him in silence for a second, then flipped open the datapad in her left hand and tapped it lightly against her palm twice. The sound was soft, but sharp enough to cut a narrow seam through the stagnant air. She spoke without hesitation.
The crows may have tampered with the spinal matrix of one of the trees.
She said, her voice clear and steady.
3 days ago, a watch officer along the southern border reported seeing suspicious drones operating near the A50 to maintenance point.
Watching Lin's calm, professional composure, Tao felt a flicker of envy rise within him. Those born on Mars carried no burden from the blue-grey world 200 million kilometers away. They were, in a sense, the first truly free generation. The environment here was brutally unforgiving, but it was theirs. Mars lay too far from the sun. Its average temperature hovered around -50 degrees Celsius. Most of the time, humans survived underground, sheltering within the natural cavities of ancient lava tubes. Even with the protection of the sky-crowned trees, human activity on the surface was confined to only a few hundred hectares beneath each canopy. Tao walked to the observation window. Through the electronic telescope feed, Earth hovered at the far edge of the sky like a rotting fruit, wrapped in a grey fungal shroud. Air factories still churned out synthetic proteins and nanofabrics without pause. But the planet's surface had long since been swallowed by hive-like slums. Hundreds of billions from the surplus classes were packed into vertical cages, kept alive by crude virtual reality pods that fed dopamine directly into their systems. Only the Federation identity chips embedded at the backs of their necks reminded them that they were still considered part of human civilization.
Sometimes I wonder,
Tao said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else,
whether Met is truly our last hope for survival, or simply the final power play of an arrogant species.
He knew the question was not meant for Lin. To her, the fate of billions on that distant world amounted to little more than a dry line of numbers on a terminal. The Martian-born had never set foot on Earth. Their dreams held no image of a shattered homeworld, no pull of lost gravity. Their blood had dried in this red desert long ago, settling like ancient rust deep within their genes, beyond empathy.
Chief Engineer,
Lin said, breaking the silence, her voice edged with undisguised impatience.
I strongly recommend we inspect the A50 to spinal matrix immediately. If the facility has been tampered with by the crows and triggers an uncontrolled cascade overload, the impact won't be limited to this base. It will affect every reactor beneath every tree.
Lin's calm, concise report pulled Tao back from the tangle of his thoughts. Power struggles, political maneuvering, the calculations and destinies spun on Earth. None of these were ever things he handled well. He was far more at ease with clear parameters, testable causality, and systems he could see and measure as they ran. The rise and fall of the distant homeworld had always felt separated from him by an unreachable layer of abstraction. Only the red soil beneath his feet felt real, real enough to unsettle him.
Can human civilization truly continue from Mars?
Tao's gaze lingered on Lin for a brief moment. She stood straight, already accustomed to placing her weight on the ground beneath her, rather than on futures that had yet to arrive. The answer had already settled within him.
Prepare to move.
Tao said.
We're going under the tree.
To leave the oval control room, both of them had to don Mars-rated thermal suits. Although the sky-ground trees had made the surface marginally more hospitable after nearly a century of environmental transformation, Mars remained a world hostile to life. For reasons known only to her physiology, Lin required almost no supplemental oxygen. Her lungs had adapted to the planet's thin, barren atmosphere. Tao was different. He had never truly adapted to this red wasteland. He needed a sealed mask and constant monitoring of his oxygen intake.
When my brain runs at full capacity, it burns through more oxygen than a marathon,
Tao liked to say of himself. The claim sounded unscientific, even absurd, yet it carried a peculiar, almost obsessive self-awareness. It was difficult to imagine such an offhand comparison coming from House Karen, a technocratic family famed for rigor and precision. Lin never argued with him about it. She knew that although her Earth-born superior was taciturn and awkward with words, he cared more deeply for this land and its people than anyone else she had ever met. The lives of 7.5 million Martians rested on his shoulders. He had to remain clear-headed at all times, capable of making the most exact decisions possible. Her role was to make sure he could.
I'll adjust the sensitivity on your filter valve sensors,
she said. She worked on his equipment with swift, practiced motions, almost as if she were tending to a younger brother. The instinct ran deep. Lin came from a household full of siblings, and on Mars, taking care of others was a survival skill, not a kindness. Tao, for all his brilliance, was utterly alien when it came to daily life. He had never truly learned how to live on Mars. Without Lin's steady hand, he probably wouldn't last a week. RustyStarlands. Book 1. The Tree and the Kindling. Prologue. Under the Canopy. Section 3. The Sky-Crowned Tree. The Demeter Sky-Crowned Canopy lay closest to Mars's southern pole among the 12 supreme capitals, near the remnants of Arceumans, far from the equator. The region was bitterly cold, but its abundant subsurface ice made it an ideal cradle for the growth of the sky-crowned trees. A single tree could do little to change its surroundings. Only where 3 or more trees overlapped, where their canopies merged into what settlers called a shared shade, could a stable microclimate take hold. Beneath this layered protection, daytime surface temperatures could be sustained at around 10 degrees Celsius. Demeter's canopy far exceeded that threshold. Nearly 100 mature trees rose across the region, with more than a dozen juvenile ones growing rapidly among them. Somewhere within this living lattice lay the target, the A52 spinal matrix. Their destination sat along the southern edge of the canopy city, the furthest limit of human activity. Beyond it stretched the endless frozen desert of Mars. To reach it quickly, Tao and Lin boarded an unusual Martian vehicle, the Platinum Skiff. It was Tao's own invention, a low-altitude airship. Hydrogen injected into sealed hollow chambers provided lift, while a working fluid engine drove it forward, allowing the craft to fly swiftly through Mars's thin atmosphere. Compared with traditional electric rovers, the Platinum Skiff was several times faster, though it carried far less payload. It was designed for speed, not hauling. Tao had absolute faith in the design. He had even released the patent publicly, hoping it would reshape transportation on Mars. Criticism followed almost immediately.
Isn't this just a low-flying cruise missile packed with rocket engines and explosive gas?
Some technocrats sneered.
Anyone who comes up with something like this is either insane or a terrorist.
Mockery and doubt poured in like a storm. Tao merely smiled and continued piloting the single prototype across the Martian surface, proving its safety with every flight. Lin had always felt that Tao's devotion to Mars mirrored his stubborn belief in the Platinum Skiff. Even alone, he would prove that something deserved trust. Tao's gaze remained fixed on the skiff's silver radiation-resistant coating. Its smooth surface was like a still lake, reflecting the shifting outlines of the Martian wasteland, appearing and vanishing as light and shadow crossed it. His fingers tapped lightly against his wrist, a reflex so ingrained that even through layers of composite insulation, he seemed to feel the cold metal beneath. There. He wore a tungsten cobalt atomic watch that had once belonged to his brother, Lintlash Karin. The watch, along with the Karin family crest engraved on its face a hammer and flame, symbol of mastery over both technology and will, had passed to Tao after his brother's disappearance. That unconscious tap acted like a silent command. Each time his fingers touched the metal, his mind surged awake, emergency protocols branching and recombining at speed. Every detail was dissected, calculated, and aligned, like gears within a complex machine locking into place, waiting for the critical trigger. At the same time, Lynn was fully focused on speed and control. She adjusted the control yoke with ease, using a raised ridge of terrain to hurl the platinum skiff upward. The craft leapt like an arrow released from a bow, skimming past the crown of a sky-crowned tree. Thousands of duskleaf crystals were thrown into chaos by the sudden airflow, pelting the hull with sharp, ringing impacts, like hail striking a metal roof. She immediately dropped altitude again. The skiff plunged low, nearly grazing the ground as its searchlights cut through swirling dust, revealing the brutal metal jungle at the tree's base. Hundreds of silicon carbide pipelines burst from the surface like the fangs of some frozen beast. They pierced deep into fractured bedrock, channeling reactor heat underground to melt ice and pump liquid water back to the surface. Heat dissipation fins along the pipes opened and closed in steady rhythm. Each release sent jets of supercritical steam roaring out, freezing instantly into glittering icicles, only to melt seconds later into black rain when the next wave of heat surged through. Lynn never slowed. She threaded the skiff smoothly through the tangled root zone. Every 20 meters, the 3-meter-wide pipes swelled into tumor-like nodes, micro-fission reactor chambers. The pride of House Karen. Through thick observation windows, Tao caught glimpses of blue Cherenkov radiation dancing through liquid sodium coolant, like blue-ringed octopuses drifting in the deep sea. Beautiful, fluid, and lethally precise. When the skiff finally cleared the root network, it shuddered briefly, then curved around the tree's main trunk. The searchlight swept across an exposed early structure, a roughly 50 square meter core, like a rusted steel spine laid bare to the storms of time. Layers of fibrous bark had grown over it, but beneath those growth rings, traces of the earliest construction still remained. The new trunk's surface was pitted and uneven, like a coral reef, each cavity sheltering microscopic nests formed by magnetotactic bacteria after mineralization. Tao knew what he was seeing. This was House Silvaris's most secret achievement. Genetically engineered biomechanical microbial colonies, working at an imperceptible pace, they consumed, reshaped, and layered matter until a primitive golden bough transformed into a true tree. Every sky-crowned tree, every greenhouse canopy humanity relied upon, had been built by these invisible craftsmen, grain by grain, patiently devouring time itself to forge hope on a dead world. Lynn pushed her goggles up slightly, her voice drifting from professional comm for the first time.
Prepare to pass through the cloud layer. This is the part I know best.
Tao sighed.
You really should watch fewer old Earth films. The Platinum Skiff isn't a Podracer.
Wasn't Tatooine based on somewhere on Mars?
Lynn asked casually, while adjusting their heading.
Tatooine was based on Death Valley, in California.
Tao replied.
Though I'd rather this place eventually become Yosemite.
The horizon swallowed his gaze. Lynn fell quiet, then shrugged, her tone playful.
So which do you think will happen first, dense forests on Mars, or Jedi swinging lightsabers?
The question lingered on the comm channel for less than a second. Tao shook his head, a bitter smile touching his lips. He knew he would never live to see Mars turn green. Met was a project measured in millennia. They were planters, not harvesters. Perhaps those elites who claimed the privilege of immortality could afford to wait until Mars became blue again. Tao had never trusted such technologies. Some dreamed of becoming gods. He believed something simpler. Mortals remained mortal, even with 1,000 years of life. The weight of the thought faded as both of them looked up. Above them, milky fog surged like a rising tide. Deep permafrost ice, melted over millions of years, had been boiled through thermonuclear systems and driven upward through vascular channels inside the trees. finally venting as vapor from countless nozzles at the canopy's edge. The vapor carried countless tiny twilight seeds, drifting in invisible currents like silver dust stirred into milk. In Mars's thin air, they assembled themselves into delicate hexagonal films, known as duskleaf. Duskleaf was the key medium of the artificial greenhouse. It converted precious solar photons drawn from 200 million kilometers away into heat that fed the land. And when the films eventually fractured and decayed into finer dust, they became the skeleton of clouds binding moisture, returning at last as cleansing snow and rain. When the first blade of dawn pierced the clouds, the sky seemed to ignite. This was the moment when twilight seeds transformed into duskleaf. Only 20 millimeters wide, each crystalline membrane used plasmonic resonance to trap heat within tiny umbrella-like protrusions. Light flowed and refracted across the gossamer hexagons, dazzling and unreal. Tao narrowed his eyes, watching the duskleaf descend. Suspended, as if by invisible threads, the crystal sheets drifted toward the red surface at a steady rate of 17 centimeters per minute. Then he frowned. Some of the films shimmered with a strange, intrusive iridescence. The unnatural color rippled through his thoughts like a stone dropped into still water. He knew it wasn't natural. It was information embedded in microscopic structure. A signature of House Silverus.
What are you really trying to do?
He murmured.
Are you trying to become this new world's?
The word died on his tongue. As the skiff passed between two intersecting tree roots, the cabin temperature spiked. Tao slightly adjusted the ventilation valve on his protective suit, feeling sweat trace his collarbone and disappear into the metal biointerface at his chest. This overlapping canopy formed a natural greenhouse. Dual layers of duskleaf raised surface temperatures to 15 degrees Celsius. Through the viewport, Tao saw genetically modified moss pushing through cracked permafrost, glowing faint green as it drank in artificial sunlight. At the junction of the tree shadows, a circular oasis nearly 300 meters wide spread quietly across the sand. Enhanced lichens multiplied wildly under composite radiation fields, their mycelial networks twisting across the ground like dark red arteries, reminiscent of coronary samples from anatomy class. The skiff suddenly shuddered. Lin jerked the controls, narrowly avoiding a drifting duskleaf cloud. Saturated crystals condensed into snow rain, falling onto frozen ground and erupting into pillars of pale steam. When A-52 appeared on the horizon, Tao had already shifted into full operational focus. 3 young trees, each only 1,200 meters tall, stood in silence, though small compared with mature giants. More than 2,000 micro-fission reactors roared beneath their intertwined roots. Neutron flux, suppressed by 100 meters of rock, pulsed as a constant low-frequency tremor, as though the planet itself were resonating. Lin cut the engines. In the sudden quiet, Tao heard the rhythmic thunder inside the tree, high-pressure steam racing through trunk conduits like blood surging through a giant's veins. For an instant, he felt as if he were floating inside the vast heart of human civilization itself. Its cold miracles nothing more than faint muscular twitches. The sky-crowned tree existed on the blurred boundary between biology and machine. Even for House Karen, it was a dangerous miracle, but nuclear maintenance and tuning that was Tao's domain. House Karen had always excelled at finding discordant notes within chaos and fixing them. Cleaning up after powerful people had become their grim, unspoken motto.
We're here.
Lin said, setting the skiff down near the roots of one tree. She deployed a rock-piercing anchor to stabilize the craft. They shouldered their gear and climbed a simple pulley ladder to a maintenance hatch 20 meters above ground. The hatch was corroded and scarred, metal etched with rust like dried blood. No markings should have been there yet. As Tao's eyes traced the stains, a blurred whisper surfaced in his mind. My blood, my bone, my flesh, my will, all become ripples. His chest tightened. The rust was random, meaningless. It could not form words. And yet the phrase lingered, as if a sealed signal, buried deep in his subconscious, had been triggered.
What is it?
Lin urged.
Nothing.
Tao looked away and reached for the valve.
Ready.
Lin asked from behind him, her mechanical fingers already on the emergency release. Tao nodded. Lin pulled the lever. The hatch screamed open with a shrill metallic scrape. A wave of heat surged out, carrying steam, rust, and something he couldn't name decayed, yet stubbornly alive. It was the scent of something deep within the steel forest, beating slowly, inexorably. RustyStarlands. Book 1. The Tree and the Kindling. Prologue. Under the Canopy. Section 4. The Spinal Matrix. Unlike the wild complexity of the tree's exterior, its interior was strikingly restrained. Subtle, semi-regular patterns surfaced along the floors and walls. Between those textures glowed a soft orange-red light, like the translucent walls of enormous chlorophyll cells. With the low hum rising from deep within the trunk, the surfaces seemed to expand and contract in slow, measured breaths. Their boots struck the ground with dull echoes. Each step sent vibrations through the structure, faint tremors traveling up their legs and into their bodies, as if the colossal organism was silently observing its intruders. Tao scanned his surroundings. This was not a mechanical structure in any conventional sense, but a material suspended in ambiguity somewhere between organic and inorganic, according to the data he had studied. The tree's foundational substance was known as golden bough, a supermaterial modeled on cellular biology, built through genetic programming that directed carbon and calcium atoms into precise, oriented growth. Golden bough was considered one of the most powerful materials humanity had ever created. Its hardness rivaled diamond. Its density approached that of coral. Each strand of golden bough was a self-contained structure, nearly impossible to machine or reshape. Its form could only be determined by genetic instructions set in advance. The process resembled cultivation far more than construction, raising a tree, not assembling a machine. A sky-crowned tree began as a single golden bough sapling, 200 meters in length. With sufficient nutrients, it could rise to 3,000 meters within a century, becoming the most towering artificial structure on Mars.
The temperature is 5 degrees higher than expected.
Lin said, glancing down at the environmental monitor on her wrist, a slight crease forming between her brows. Tao looked down. She was right. The interior was warmer than the figures in his data suggested. Though the tree's material was extraordinarily strong, it provided little insulation and offered poor radiation shielding. What might have been an ideal ecological habitat had ultimately proven unsuitable for permanent settlement. Now the interior served only as a temporary refuge, majestic, cold, and fundamentally inhospitable to daily human life. Tao said nothing and continued forward. Lin followed close behind. They moved through the tree's interior for nearly 10 minutes before the space opened abruptly. Light filtered down through a semi-translucent dome above, casting layered shadows across the floor. They had reached the true heart of the tree, a 50-to spinal matrix. Here, the expanding vascular networks of the sky-crowned tree reached something close to divine excess. Within a cylindrical shaft more than 100 meters high, countless hexagonal lattices spiraled upward toward the ceiling. At each junction were embedded fist-sized luminous spheres. The dim blue orbs pulsed at steady intervals of 0.7 seconds. Like a school of anglerfish lulled into collective hypnosis, drifting calmly toward a whirlpool in the abyss. This was the core of the sky-crowned tree, the spinal matrix. Lynn's bionic fingertips brushed the surface of the lattice. The instant she touched one of the spheres, ripples surged across the crystalline wall. Hundreds of thousands of tree fibers contracted and expanded in response, the shock racing along the central axis toward the canopy thousands of meters above. A moment later, fine crystalline sounds cascaded from overhead as duskly fragments fell, as if a god had overturned a handful of polished stones from the clouds. Amid this vast rhythm, a sharp red warning flared across Tao's display. He stopped short, his gaze locking onto a corner of the third lattice tier. One luminous sphere there was completely smothered beneath a grey film woven from fungal filaments. No blue light escaped. It looked disturbingly like an inflamed wound sealed beneath a scab. Sensor readings spiked. The neutron flux emitted by the filaments measured more than 3 times the external baseline.
The reflective layer has been covered by something,
Tao said quietly, almost to himself.
It doesn't match natural deposition, and it doesn't resemble residue from any maintenance procedure.
He lifted a molecular sampling stylus and gently teased at the grey-white growth. His movements were slower than usual by half a beat. There was no resistance. The filaments peeled away with unsettling ease, lighter than expected, like a shadow that should never have existed in the first place. The crystalline lattice beneath re-emerged, cold blue light flowing once more along its hexagonal edges. A chill crawled up the back of his neck. He fed the sample into a portable analyzer. During the few seconds it took to process, Tao did not look away from the sphere. The patterns of light no longer registered as data or structure, but as something eerily familiar. He was certain he had seen this arrangement before. He simply could not remember where or when. A warning tone chimed. The display unfolded. Hexagonal points of light interlocked, rapidly sketching out a set of correlation curves. Tao's eyes moved to read the parameters by instinct, then stopped at once. The slope of the prairie peak caused a barely perceptible hitch in his breathing. He had seen this gradient before. Not in a tree, not on Mars, but in a report that had been sealed and rejected over and over again. The Moon, the Taicho facility, the final complete record before loss of control. His fingers curled unconsciously.
That's not possible.
The words were barely audible, like a candle just extinguished. He pulled up a comparison layer. His movements quickened, edged with urgency. Data stacked, compressed, recalculated. The curve did not vanish. Instead, it stood out even more sharply in the new coordinate frame, like a wound deliberately left unhealed. At that exact moment, a sudden heat flared beneath his wristwatch. Tao froze, then looked down by reflex. The tungsten cobalt watch still rested quietly against his wristbone. He couldn't see it through the suit, but the heat was unmistakable metal slowly warming, searing through skin and into his veins. A hallucination. He told himself that immediately. But another sensation rose to the surface: the abnormal heat inside the control room on the day of the lunar accident, the sweat beading at his brother's temples as he dismantled the device. And that eerie illusion, seconds before the explosion, when every instrument had gone silent at once. It was too similar. Sickeningly so.
That watch officer, the one who first detected the anomaly.
Tao said suddenly. his voice pitched strangely, as if something were forcing it out of his chest.
Where is he now?
He didn't look at Lynn. His eyes remained locked on the data.
I need to see him.
His speech began to unravel.
Now. Immediately.
The air seemed to thicken, turning viscous. Tao's breathing grew shallow. Each inhale filtered, labored. He realized he could no longer smell the familiar metallic tang. In its place crept a cloying, unsettling sweetness. The watch felt hotter. Anger, pain, unease, everything surged together, swelling into a suffocating tide inside his chest. His throat burned. His vision darkened at the edges. Through the haze, a powerful impulse took hold. Take off the suit. Just remove it. If he could strip away the barrier, he could breathe again. He could let the heat from the past drain out of him. He jerked his hands up toward his helmet, and was stopped instantly.
Let go of me. I need this off now.
Lynn did not answer. Instead, she seized his arms from behind, locking them in place. The force was absolute, unyielding, even without the cold weight of her bionic right arm. Her left flesh and bone alone was enough to immobilize a grown man. This was not strength one gained living in low gravity. Tao felt the unnatural solidity in her grip. As a kindling vanguard, Lynn had begun injections of skeletal enhancers and high-density muscle growth compounds at the age of 15. The chemically driven strength allowed her to survive Mars's Red Inferno, but it had rewritten her biology entirely. Beneath the taut skin was no longer flexible muscle fiber, but something more like a compressed, lethal spring, coiled and ready to snap. That was the price of kindling, a brutal contract that would never appear in any colonial brochure.
I order you to release me. Take it off. Take it off.
Tao's eyes were bloodshot as he struggled, trying to bend, to kick, to wrench free. It was useless. Under Lin's overwhelming restraint, his strength drained away. His limbs went slack. Darkness closed in. Epilogue. Lin slowly released her grip and adjusted her posture, lowering Tao's unconscious body so that his head rested on her thigh. Her palm passed briefly over his chest. Biometric readings remained within normal parameters, breathing steady. Pulse even. It was almost as if the violent struggle moments ago had been a hallucination, a nightmare already dissolving from memory. Around them, the interior of the tree was silent as ever, as though it had absorbed every sound. She did not stand at once. Instead, she lowered her head and listened to the nearly inaudible tones in her earpiece. Temperature, pressure, oxygen partial pressure. 3 curves rose and fell across the dim interface, maintaining a fragile, temporary equilibrium. She adjusted Tao's helmet, confirming the locks was secure, then moved his body gently against the wall. The motion was careful, like repositioning a device that must remain intact. Condensation still clung to the inside of his visor, fog framing the stillness of his eyelashes. She looked at him. For a brief moment, something in her gaze might almost have been called tenderness, not from pity, but from the knowledge that she was about to betray his trust. And above that betrayal lay something heavier still, something she alone had chosen to carry. The green indicator continued to pulse. Stable. Lin reached for the airtight seal at the side of Tao's neck. Her fingers traced the metal groove, confirming the connection, then settled on the twin release toggles at either side of the helmet. Their red markings glowed sharply in the dim light. She paused. A short chime sounded in her earpiece. Oxygen levels dipped slightly. The temperature curve continued its slow ascent. Her eyes flicked once toward the half-exposed metallic interface beneath Tao's collarbone. She did not hesitate again. The toggles turned. The locks disengaged one by one, releasing low, precise mechanical clicks. The pressure seal shuddered. A narrow seam opened between helmet and collar ring, and a thread of warm, humid air slipped free, condensing instantly into pale vapor beneath the cold light. The biometric feed wavered for a heartbeat, then stabilized. At that exact moment, Lynn heard it. A deeper sound from within the tree. Distant, subterranean. A resonance that did not belong to any visible mechanism. It was faint, but enough to freeze her fingers in place. She looked toward the far end of the corridor. It remained empty. Lights flickered. Organic patterns pulsed along the inner walls, as if nothing at all had changed. But she knew. Something had awakened. She lifted her hand again, and took hold of the helmet's outer rim. Click-hiss. The separation of metal and seal rang sharply in the narrow chamber, like a small gear removed from a running engine. As the helmet rose slowly, Tao's forehead, lashes, and nose emerged one by one. The moment the seal broke entirely, a damp strand of hair at his brow froze against his skin, dark as ink caught mid-flow. The next second, warning lights ignited inside the suit. Red digits flashed against the interior of the visor. 059, 058, 057. Tao's life support system entered emergency countdown mode. A low-frequency alarm pulsed through the enclosed space. Lynn's face did not waver. The tree continued its low murmur. Bioluminescence continued its slow, rhythmic breathing. Prologue, END.
Red dust sleeps wherever died. Thin lamps bloom against the night. We made a home from borrowed air and taught the roots to hold us there.
Silver branches turn above, far below the cold cores hum. Every number, every flame keeps a million hearts from falling still.
Hand on the rail,
Eyes on the gauge, another quiet shift in an unfinished stage. Beneath the sky, crown tree, we breathe what was never free. Smallest sparks on a rust-red sea, held by roots we cannot see. Beneath the sky, crown tree, we keep the fire, the fire
the gale, pale against the cratered vale. No bells ring when shadows move, no witness knows what silence proves.
Through the chambers, through the stone, every pulse becomes a home. While the branches touch the stars, we tend the wounds beneath their scars.
Hand on the rail,
Eyes on the gauge, another quiet life in an unfinished age.
Beneath the sky, crown tree, we breathe what was never free. Smallest sparks on a rust-red sea, held by roots we cannot see. Beneath the sky, crown tree, we keep the fire keeps us. And far below the iron leaves, something waits where the light can dream.
if this tree is gone, then we are rain, brief on its skin, gone without a name.
If this tree is flesh, then what lies deep under the chambers where the cold things sleep?
A shape in ash, of eyes are dim, not born of root, nor made by him.
No warning came, no siren cried, only the dark opened its eyes.
Beneath the sky, crown tree, we mend the world so it may dream. Smallest sparks on a rust-red sea, held by roots we cannot see.